Hi, this is Alessio. Hope you're well. Some of you have been asking me for an update on chart of Bitcoin, and as we can see here, Bitcoin just this week, it took out an important level of support, psychological support at 50K, just took out that level, dropped about 49K and bounced so far beautifully. Now, the key question is, what does Bitcoin need to do to establish some kind of a bottom? Or could this drop and break of trend line be the start of perhaps something else? Could this perhaps indicate a top in Bitcoin? That's something we need to ask, especially as we took out these July lows. So that's what I'll be talking about in this video. All right, guys, join me. All right, guys, welcome back. So we are actually, believe it or not, in the exact same situation, more or less the same situation as we were just a few weeks ago when Bitcoin dropped over here in early July. So once again, Bitcoin rallied, and once again, it's dropped one more time, which I'm sure has caused a lot of frustration with many folks out there. I think some folks out there probably are thinking like lead judges, as we said back in June, like this.
That is a foul!
You little bastard!
He does it
Done it again! You dirty bastard! You've done it again!
Yes, exactly. So there's a lot of frustration right now, obviously, with Bitcoin. But as I said, it may be that some people actually enjoyed this drop because it came down to an important support level, 50K. 50K is a level that I think a lot of Bitcoin enthusiasts were looking forward to, I think, from what I've gathered. But let me just say also that this rally that occurred in Bitcoin from beginning of July to August, I have to say this rally did look to me impulsive. So it was actually, again, it was a good start. So the odds and the probabilities were looking good for it to stay above these levels. But unfortunately, it did not stay above those levels. So this is the thing we have to remember. Sometimes the higher probability scenario does not work out. Because I thought that a drop below the lows of July, below these levels, I thought it was less likely. But we have to remember that sometimes the market chooses the less probable path. Okay, so we can look at the probabilities and we can determine what is the most likely, what is the less likely scenario. But sometimes the market chooses the less likely scenario, despite everything else. So there it is. So the market has now taken out the support. And I think the market now has a lot of work to do before we can determine or judge that a bottom is in place. And let me say, at the moment, Bitcoin has not done anything as yet to indicate that a bottom has been made. Although it is probable that if Bitcoin can rally impulsively again, let's say we can get a nice impulsive rally above resistance, let's say the weekly 21 EMA, and importantly this level, 65,600 is a level of resistance on the daily time frame chart. Let me show you. That's a level of resistance there on the daily time frame chart. That's a level we need to watch. If Bitcoin can get something going above that level of resistance impulsively, 65,600 approximately, then the odds would increase of a bottom in place for Bitcoin. At the moment, we're not there yet. And let me say there's no guarantee that Bitcoin will do that in any case. But let me say that I think we're in the same position that we were back in July. Because here's essentially what needs to happen on Bitcoin to indicate a bottom. Now, as I mentioned, what we need is an impulsive rally, a five-wave bounce above these levels. So firstly, it needs to get above the 21 weekly moving average right there. So that's the blue line you see in my chart. Very important. That level approximately at the moment, approximately right now is about 61K. Yeah, more or less 61K or 61,200, more or less. So Bitcoin needs to get above that level, that blue line, 21 EMA, and close above it. When I say close, I mean on a weekly candle bar. So if Bitcoin can rally and get above that level of resistance at 21 EMA, that would be the first positive sign for Bitcoin. But let me say that would not actually be enough. I would like to see further follow through of 65,600 before we can determine that we have a high probability of a bottom in place and potentially a move to significantly higher levels, okay, towards new all-time highs. But there is also another possibility that you need to bear in mind. There's a pattern that you need to watch out for. Let me show you what I mean. Take a look at what happened in the year 2021, 2022. So when Bitcoin dropped that year, okay, look what happened. So after the top that was made in November of 2021, and then a big decline that occurred here, okay, look what happened immediately afterwards. This is the pattern you need to watch out for. And I want to keep this video as simple as possible. Notice that Bitcoin, after it dropped here, it then bounced back to the 21 weekly moving average. And notice the structure of that bounce. Notice the structure. It was a three-wave bounce, a corrective bounce. You see it right over here. A, B, C. Okay? It bounced back to the 21 weekly. And what did it do? It then failed. It got rejected from that level. And as a matter of fact, you can see it then dropped lower. That was the first initial warning sign that, hey, something is not right, because we're getting rejected from the 21 weekly moving average. That is typically a rejection. So after a drop below the 21 EMA, okay, after a drop to the 21 weekly moving average, and then a bounce back to that level, rejection, that is almost similar to the kiss of death pattern. Although the kiss of death, I look at that on the monthly chart, but it could also be applied on a weekly chart. But again, bottom line is, it doesn't really matter. The fact is that rejection from the 21 weekly moving average is not a good sign at all for Bitcoin, because that's what happened in 2021, 2022. That was the first initial sign of a bear market. Okay, look what happened afterwards. Notice again what happened here. Bitcoin once again pulled back to the 21 EMA. As a matter of fact, it pulled back more or less twice, as you can see right there. And notice the rally was once again corrective in nature, in a three-wave move. Look at this. A wave, B wave, C wave, a three-wave rally. Now, some of you are probably thinking, hang on a second, wasn't that 5 waves? Wasn't this, let me show you. Because some of you may be thinking that this was a 5-wave rally. Let me show you. For example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, no, no. That is not an impulsive 5-wave rally. Okay? Why? For a very good reason. Because, first of all, the third wave can never be the shortest impulse wave. Very important. And look at the overlaps. This was a completely overlapping structure. As you know, overlapping structures like this, when the waves intertwine, go in the territory of one another, that is not an impulsive structure. Okay? That is a corrective structure. What you need for an impulsive structure is something like this. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When they do not overlap. This was not at all what happened. What you had here was a lot of overlapping patterns, okay? And when you see a lot of overlap like this, yeah, that's telling you you're probably dealing with a correction, a corrective rally. And notice, again, it got rejected once again. So we rallied back to the 21 weekly moving average, and we got rejected twice. Twice we got rejected from here, and again from here. It came up here, went above the 21 average, and then quickly dropped back below it. When this occurs, when Bitcoin goes above the weekly time frame, a 21 moving average gets rejected and goes back below it, yeah, that's not a good sign. It's a sign of a potential continuation of a bear market or the start of a bear market, okay? And of course, Bitcoin then continued to go significantly lower. So just bear this in mind. The reason I'm mentioning this is because if something like this happens this year, or in the next few weeks and months, then be on alert. So if we get a corrective 3-wave bounce, assuming this is the low for the moment, assuming the Bitcoin has made a low or some kind of a temporary bottom, we don't know that just yet. We don't know that. But let's just assume for now that Bitcoin has made an intermediate low. Then let's say we get some kind of a bounce back to the 21 weekly moving average right about there. Okay, so let's say we get a bounce to this level. Okay, and then let's say, assuming that Bitcoin has made a low, an intermediate bottom. Let's say we get a bounce back to this 21 EMA and then gets rejected. By the way, if the bounce is corrective, it must be corrective, then gets rejected from the 21 moving average. Yeah, be on alert, because getting rejected from the 21 moving average there, from this region approximately, so in other words, if we rally back to this region, 60K approximately here, okay, if we rally back to that level correctively and then getting rejected from the 21 weekly moving average, then brace for impact. That could be a sign of a bear market to significantly lower levels. All right, guys, as I just said, in order for Bitcoin to prove to us that it wants to bottom, it has to get above this region that I just mentioned, above not just the weekly 21, but also 65,600. So Bitcoin has a lot of work to do to prove to us that it wants to bottom out and move towards the all-time highs and towards much higher levels like 80, 90, or even 100K. Okay, at the moment that is by no means clear. It is not a high probability scenario. Okay, so let's wait and see what happens. At the moment, we don't have a clear structure on Bitcoin. What I can say though, let me just say this: if we put a regression channel on our chart, I know some of you are probably thinking this. Some of you are probably thinking, "Hey, Alessio, do we not have a flag pattern on the chart?" Guys, be very careful of falling into narratives that whatever you think you see on the chart is what's happening on the chart, okay? So I know it looks like a flag pattern, especially from a regression channel analysis. So yeah, you could argue this looks like some kind of a, flag pattern on the chart, all right? And maybe, and by the way, remember, flag patterns require confirmation, don't they? So even if you want to assume that this drop here is some kind of a flag pattern formation, whatever corrective formation you want to assume, as I'm sure you're aware, that would still need confirmation by a break of resistance. It would need confirmation by a break above this level of resistance at about 65,600 or 66K. Okay, so I do realize that you are intelligent and sophisticated people. I know my audience are intelligent people. So I realize that you know about probabilities. All I'm saying is there's some people out there who just assume that whatever they think they see on the chart is exactly what it is. That is not the case. Even though it looks like a flag pattern, please assume there are other possibilities. There are other probabilities. Okay, we'll talk about this in future video updates. I'll go into this in the member video on Sunday. But let me say again, at the moment, just keep your eye on that 21 EMA, which, by the way, let me say this, that 21 EMA on the chart, that blue line, is about the same level as the mid-range level, this red line on the regression channel. So that's going to be an important resistance, about 60 or 61K approximately there. So keep your eye on that. If Bitcoin rallies to that level, again, as I mentioned, about 60 or 61K approximately, and then gets rejected from that level, like it did in the past, then yeah, brace for impact. That could be a sign of a potential bear market or a downtrend or a long-term top in Bitcoin. I'm not saying that's what it is. I'm saying just keep your eye on that because that's a possibility and risk we have to consider. All right, guys, and I think in the next several weeks we'll have a better picture on what's going on in Bitcoin. All right, guys, let me know your thoughts about these charts I just showed for Bitcoin. Let me know what you think. By the way, guys, if you haven't yet subscribed to our videos here on YouTube, if you haven't yet clicked the bell icon, please do so you'll be notified of my next future video updates as well. Thank you very much indeed. I look forward to seeing the next video update. Bye for now.